There comes a moment in life, especially after 65, when the questions begin to shift. Earlier it was, what is my purpose? Later it quietly becomes, why do I still feel restless even after achieving so much? And perhaps the deepest wisdom is this. Sometimes peace does not come from finding a new purpose, but from releasing the obsession of chasing one and learning the art of presence. Let me share a story. There was an elderly gentleman named Mr. Sharma. He was 72, a retired school principal. Even after retirement, he kept asking himself, what is my purpose now? I must do something meaningful. So he joined social organizations, started multiple projects, gave speeches, even tried writing a book. But every night he felt strangely tired, not physically, but inwardly empty. One day his grandson asked him, Dadaji, when do you feel happiest? He paused. Then softly said, when I sit with you and watch the birds in silence. That was his awakening. He realized he was searching for purpose in noise, while peace was always waiting in silence. Not long after, he stopped chasing big purpose and started living small moments, fully morning tea with his wife, feeding pigeons, watering plants, and just sitting without agenda. And surprisingly, that is when his life felt truly meaningful. Because presence began where pressure ended. 1. Purpose chasing creates pressure, presence creates peace. There is a beautiful illusion we often carry throughout life that we must constantly be becoming something to feel worthy. In our younger years, it is career, success, family responsibilities. But even after 65, this same pattern quietly continues in a different form. What is my purpose now? Let me share a story. There was a retired banker named Mr. Mehta. After 40 years of disciplined service, he thought retirement would bring rest. But instead, it brought restlessness. Within months, he began attending seminars on finding purpose after retirement, joined multiple social groups, and even started mentoring young entrepreneurs. Yet something inside him felt heavy. One evening, he met an old college friend at a park. His friend was sitting quietly on a bench, simply watching children play. Mr. Mehta asked, what are you doing these days? Any projects? His friend smiled and said, I am just living. That sentence disturbed him more than any failure ever had. On his way home, Mr. Mata realized something powerful. He had turned even his retirement into a performance. He was still trying to earn meaning instead of experiencing life. We often don't notice how purpose becomes pressure. When everything must be meaningful, even silence feels wasted. Even resting feels guilty. Even doing nothing feels like failure. But presence teaches a different truth. You are not a machine that must always produce meaning. You are a human being who can simply be. After 65, life is not asking you to prove your value. Society may still whisper, do something useful, but wisdom gently responds, I already am enough. When Mr. Mehta stopped chasing structured purpose, something unexpected happened. He began waking up without urgency. He started noticing simple things, birds on his balcony, the smell of morning tea, long conversations with his wife without checking the clock. He did not find a new purpose. Instead, he found something deeper, peace without conditions. And that is the paradox. When you stop chasing purpose aggressively, meaning does not disappear. It dissolves into everyday life. You realize presence was never empty. It was full but unnoticed. 2. The mind keeps running even when life has stopped asking you to. One of the greatest surprises of aging is not physical slowing down, is mental inability to slow down. A 68-year-old woman once said something very honest. My body retired, but my mind never did. Even after responsibilities reduce, the mind continues its old habit of planning, worrying, calculating worth, measuring usefulness. It keeps asking, am I still needed? Am I still relevant? What should I do next? This is where suffering quietly begins. Let me tell you about Mrs. Kapoor, a homemaker who dedicated her entire life to her family. After her children moved abroad, she suddenly felt unneeded. So she began filling her days with volunteering, classes, and community work. But even then, she felt an inner agitation. One day, while visiting her, I noticed she couldn't sit still even for 10 minutes. She would get up, adjust things, check her phone, clean already clean spaces. I asked her softly, "When was the last time you did nothing?" She smiled awkwardly and said, "I don't know how to do that anymore." That is the tragedy of an untrained mind. It forgets how to rest in itself. Presence is not about stopping life, it is about stopping mental over explanation of life. It is allowing moments to exist without labeling them as useful or useless. After 65, life is no longer asking you to run. But the mind, conditioned for decades, keeps running on old tracks. This is why presence is not automatic, it is practice. It begins with small moments, sitting without purpose for 5 minutes, breathing without checking anything, drinking water without multitasking, watching sunlight without analyzing it. Slowly, something shifts. The mind learns a new language, the language of stillness. And in that stillness, you realize something profound. Life was never incomplete. It only felt incomplete because the mind was always moving away from it. Presence is not the absence of activity, it is the absence of inner noise. 3. Ordinary moments become sacred when you stop labeling them as useless. We often believe meaning lies in extraordinary events, big achievements, spiritual missions, grand purpose. But the truth is far more subtle. Meaning is hidden in the ordinary, waiting to be noticed. A farmer once told me something unforgettable. He said, "Earlier, I used to wait for festivals to feel happy. Now I feel happy even when I see rain falling on my hands." What changed? Not his life circumstances, only his attention. Let me share the story of Mr. Ahmed, a retired railway employee. After retirement, he initially felt his life had become empty. He missed his old routine, his authority, his sense of importance. But one day, during a power cut, he sat on his terrace at night. No phone, no television, no distraction. Just silence and stars. For the first time in decades, he simply observed the night sky. He later said, "I don't know why, but I felt like I was part of something very big." That moment became a turning point. He didn't change his life, he changed his attention. We suffer not because life is meaningless, but because we refuse to see meaning in what is already here. After 65, you may no longer have the pressure of deadlines, promotions, or competition. But you may still carry an invisible pressure. My time must be used meaningfully. This creates a subtle violence against the present moment. Presence gently dissolves that violence. It says nothing is just anything. A cup of tea is not just tea. A quiet morning is not just time passing. A conversation with an old friend is not just casual talk. It is life itself unfolding. When labeling stops, reverence begins. And in that reverence, even ordinary moments start feeling sacred. 4. True wisdom is not searching more, but seeing more in what already is. A young seeker once traveled across countries, searching for enlightenment. After decades, he returned exhausted and asked a simple monk, "Where can I find truth?" The monk replied, "You have been walking past it your entire life." Confused, the seeker asked, "Where?" The monk said, "In the breath you ignored while searching." This is the essence of wisdom after 65. At some point in life, seeking becomes exhausting. You realize you have read enough, searched enough, achieved enough. Yet something still feels unfinished. But the shift from seeking to see changes everything. Let's take the example of Mr. Verma, a retired professor. He spent years attending spiritual lectures, reading books, and traveling to retreats. But he always felt something was missing. One day, due to illness, he was forced to stay at home for weeks. No travel, no lectures, no plans, just stillness. Initially, he felt frustrated, but slowly he began noticing small things: his breath, the sound of wind through windows, the rhythm of his own thoughts. 1. Afternoon, while sitting quietly, he said, "For the first time, I am not trying to become anything." That sentence held his awakening. Presence reveals what seeking hides. Seeking keeps you oriented toward the future. Presence brings you back to what is already alive. After 65, life is not asking you to accumulate more spiritual knowledge, more achievements, or more roles. It is inviting you to unlearn urgency. Wisdom is not found at the end of a search. It is discovered when searching stops, dominating your experience. When you stop chasing purpose, you don't lose direction, you lose distraction. And in that clarity, you realize life was never waiting to be completed. It was always waiting to be noticed.